I'm Reverend Karen Einhaus. I'm the senior minister of this amazing community. I am so excited to be here. Life, right? Can we just all exhale together? You're going to hear, it has been a big, big week for New Vision Center. And I'll be surprised if I make it through the entire time here on the platform without crying a little bit. But it has been an amazing, amazing week. And I had to question my sanity. When I started planning these talks and decided that we are going to hang out in the self-acceptance part of our beautiful slide where Reverend Leslie put those 8 different paths together. And so I decided for the 2 weeks, last week and today, we would hang out in self-acceptance. Because there's nothing, beloveds, than to proclaim self-acceptance, to bring up all of the things where we don't accept ourselves. Yeah. Thank you. Somebody had the same experience, right? So the talk today is dropping the mask. And one of the things I'm very, very aware of, that you cannot give a talk on dropping the mask while you are securely behind the mask. And so, this talk and this time of self-acceptance really has brought me to a greater self-acceptance, there's really no other word, than I thought I could go to. And so I would like to walk this out with you today as we are going to practice self-acceptance a little bit more. We started last week, I gave a talk that was be yourself, because everybody else is already taken. And I had 3 points. The first one was we have to discover who we are beyond what we often let the world see. And then the second one was self-compassion. Those moments when we show up not perfectly, when we show up in our pain, in our insecurities, when we show up less than our potential. Those are the moments when we are asked to have self-compassion. When we are showing up and we are razzling the world, there's no self-compassion needed then, right? And then the third point, and that was really the one that kept going on social media, and that is the idea that if we are faced with either disappointing another or disappointing ourselves, we always, always have to disappoint another. So we don't disappoint ourselves. And it was a point that really brought forth a lot of conversation. Really? Yes. Yes. And as somebody said this morning to me, I dropped a slide that took the person 2 weeks to work on. So that person is still working on last week's talk. But all of us here today, I would invite us to work on this idea of masks. Now, we all know about those beautiful masks. And sometimes we even go to places where people are not their authentic self. And we call it theater, right? Or the movies. A whole industry made for those times when we want to see somebody portray something different than their true self. However, where that does not fit at all for me, and I think for many of us, is when it comes to our faith. When it comes to living the truth of who we are. And I was reminded this morning of Martin Luther. Many of you know I grew up in Germany, so Martin Luther was a figure that we were very, very familiar with. He was a Catholic priest. He was a Catholic priest who was unhappy with how the Catholic priests, popes, and people in power interpreted the Bible. And so he, on one fateful Saturday evening, nailed 95 theses, his complaints about the church, right on the front door of the biggest cathedral in Wittenberg, Germany. It was an interesting Sunday morning when folks showed up, right? Now, it is said that he never, ever, ever, ever had the intention to start a new religion. However, that is exactly what happened. It was what is known as the Reformation that brought a whole new way in Christianity to the forefront. So why am I telling you that? Because I believe here was a beloved who could no longer feel one way inside and proclaim something different on the outside. And perhaps you have had in your life moments like that, where it was like, enough is enough. This is who I am. So dropping the mask is then also putting our light under a bushel. And where have we heard that? As I said, I grew up in Germany, and I grew up in the Lutheran faith, and that's what we learned in catechism, is what we called it, and I had to go through it for 2 years. 2 years. And it reminded me when I heard that, because here's what it says in Matthew 5:14. It says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid, nor do man light a lamp and put it under a bushel, but on a stand, and it gives life to all in the house." Now, what is the relation there to dropping the mask? Well, I believe it is said that Jesus said that in the Sermon on the Mount. And what that really talks about is that we are all imbued with the light of the divine. And we are not to hide it from the world, but rather allow the world to see us in all of our glory. I don't know about you, but that's sometimes hard, isn't it? To take a stand and proclaim that. Now, we are in a teaching that helps us. We have these wonderful tools like a spiritual mind treatment, our form of affirmative prayer, where we start by affirming the allness of life and the glory of a sunset and a sunrise and every person everywhere. And then we proclaim that we are of that. And let's take a breath. Because what I think can sometimes happen, we find our way into such an empowering, such a life-affirming teaching And then we do with it what millions of people have done before. We say those things over and over without feeling the truth of them. We just say them. When we are willing to drop the mask, it is the moment where we often, in the stillness of our own company, have to face that. Do I believe that? Do I believe that? And so I invite you, if you're comfortable, close your eyes and just take a breath and feel into that second step of our treatment, that I am one in the one, that in the center of my being the divine resides. How close am I to truly believe that? And come back into this room. Because if that is the case, if I believe this about myself, I believe this about every person. Just as Jesus said, I am the light of the world, and you are the light of the world. There was no separation. He said, you are that inner light shines through each one of you. And so it is truly that we are each called to embrace that inner light. And yet, how often is that followed up with, a little braggy today, aren't you? You think you're better than. No. Because that proclamation that I am one in the one is the truth of who I am, and it's the truth of everybody. And it is work. It is spiritual, sacred work to come to a place to truly accept that, because that, beloveds, is self-acceptance. Accepting also that part of us that is the divine. So that is how that looks when we're doing this on a personal level. And there's this wonderful Ernest Holmes quote when we don't do it. And here's what he says. Any sense of guilt we have, any burden of condemnation we entertain, or any mental state that weighs us down, hinders us from more fully experiencing the nature of spiritual reality. It hinders us. That is why we put such a focus on healing in this community. That is why we offer, Reverend Leslie offers every other month the healing service, to really go into and find out, what is it that burdens me down? What is it that gets in between me really feeling that I am the light of the world? And then releasing that and finding out, what habits have I created that hold that limiting belief in place. And just as we do this work on a personal level, we also do it on the community level. New Vision Center this week took a big step. We hosted one of the days of the Global Convention. And I can tell you, I didn't think about that would be the biggest crowd I've ever talked to. You know, I feel so familiar and so comfortable because I can feel the love that is in the room for me. And here there were over 60 people that many of them I never knew, and there were over 300 online watching in real time. And yet, we, the New Vision community, took a big step, and we said, this is who we are. This is who we are. And I believe that the wonderful feedback that we have received as a community was because we were so real. We didn't try to pretend that we were something we are not. We are not the biggest. We are not the shiniest church. We're not the newest church or the oldest church, center for spiritual living. But we are New Vision Center, right? And that is what we brought forth. And we put together a little video. I wanted to share some of the moments here. I'm going to get out of the way so you can see it. That's how the week started, right? We started with new partners. And then we had the amazing annual meeting. And then 2 days later, Vista started. They are all the beloveds who showed up, all of the beloveds who came together to support this event. We had fabulous talks. We had a doctorate ceremony. And we shone. And we had great workshops and food. All of the people who were here, what did you think about the food? Right? And what did you think about the people who put on the food and who were here and served that day? Let's hear it for them, yes. There were so many people that supported that event because they felt that this is a community that they belong to, and they wanted to take a stand and serve this place. New Vision Center is a living, moving entity. And just as we on a personal level are always working on removing the masks, of feeling so safe that we can allow others to see us, I believe so do we as a community work on that. Now, what is this working on self-acceptance? Why would we do this? Brené Brown says it this way. She says, because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. Wow. That last sentence, our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. Now, why is that? Because when we show up with the mask, whatever the mask is, also if the mask is, that was nothing, that was nothing. No big deal. I could do that. Don't worry about it. It does two things, right? It protects our vulnerable heart. Because when we step up and say, I worked so hard, to get to that place. When we show up spiritually naked, a comment that somebody probably doesn't even mean much by it, just throws at you. It goes right into the heart. Because isn't that really the truth why we are wearing a mask? It's to protect ourselves. Because we have no way of managing all the unskilled behavior that is coming our way. I tried. I put lists together. I tell people what to do. Doesn't work. People are people, and they do people things. So that is why we have that mask, right? Because then some silly comment comes, and I let it bounce right here. However, the love and the light that I have within, that is of the divine, also stops right here. Because we can't have it both ways. And so how do we do that? How do we remove the mask? I think one way is to let another know. When we are in a relationship, when we have friends, when this is a time in our lives where we are working on self-acceptance, to be vulnerable with them and say, I'm working on something, and I would love your support. I'm going to really try to put down my mask. I'm going to really try to shine my light even more brightly, and I would appreciate if you would support me in that. Is that going to protect us from ever getting hurt? No. However, it raises the possibility tremendously. It really reminds me of that quote that Marianne Williamson has in her book, Return to Love, right? And I'm going to paraphrase it, but when we stand in our power, when we stand in our light, we give others permission to do the same. I also heard it said that there's plenty of space at the top. We are not in competition. If there was anything I learned this week, we are not in competition. There is plenty of light, of love, of space, of accolades, of joy to be had by all. Don't let somebody who is claiming it prevent you from claiming your good. And how do we do that? How do we proclaim our good? I would love to offer an affirmation for all of us to use this week. And it's this: I have the courage to be vulnerable and let my light shine. And I'm going to come down and we're all going to say it together. I have the courage to be vulnerable and let my light shine. And now say it like you mean it. I have the courage to be vulnerable and let my light shine. Yes. What comes up within you when you say that? Does it feel like, oh, that's not a big deal? Or does it feel like, oh, I'm going to take this sincerely, and I am going to allow that light that is the divine within me, I allow it to shine out through a smile, through a gesture, through saying I love you first, to saying I am sorry first. Whatever shows up, I am going to cultivate that connection within. And we have an opportunity to do that right now. I invite you to go with me into prayer. And so we allow our eyes to close. We allow everything that has been said, that has been heard, that took place here this morning or in our personal lives this morning, we allow all of that to remind us that there truly is only one. There's one power, one presence, His sweet Spirit, one infinite reality, God. And we allow ourselves to be filled up with that feeling that all of it is right where we are. It has its being in us and we have our being in it, and there is no separation. We are nearer than our heartbeat. And as we feel this, we allow this truth to expand from us, and we realize that this is the truth of every being. Each and every one of us is that intimately connected with the divine. And so from this place, we take a moment and become aware of what is my calling. What is my prayer request? What is my affirmation that I am placing into the law? It might be for more love and harmony in my life. It might be for greater abundance. It might be for more joyous relationships with the beloved. It might be a healthy flow throughout our body, whatever it is. We are feeling it already made manifest, for the law always says yes. Yes, my beloved, it is already done. And so we place this word, we impress it into the law, and then we let it go, trusting that it is made manifest in the mind and heart of the divine. We simply let it be. And together we proclaim this truth as we say, so it is.